What is happening, Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. Today, I'm a little bit extra excited, even if it's early morning. So, for my West Coast friends, chances are most of my bartenders who listen to this, or managers who listen to this, aren't even awake yet. But it's the live stream. You'll listen to this at 9 a.m. in your ears on Friday in a couple of weeks' time. But I'm really looking forward to this one because I've got Richie Barrow from Nairobi. He runs Hero Bar, which is a superhero themed bar in Nairobi, and it's the number one bar in Africa according to World's 50 Best, which is insane to think about. Like, you know me, I always ask about the origin stories for everybody, so I'm really looking forward to diving into a little bit of comic book geekery on top of cocktail geekery, on top of culture geekery, on top of everything geekery. It's just an added little point. Richie's also the co-founder of Kenya Bartender Week, which I'm really looking forward to because as I talked to Colin last week about it, I'm really looking forward to diving into new cocktail cultures in the world that are ever expanding and gain away from the usual New York, San Francisco, London sort of vibe, because that's the market I'm in. If you've ever been to Victoria, you know what sort of cocktail culture we have here. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So welcome, Richie. Thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Awesome. Yes, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me on, Shawn. Super excited and super honored.
So, as I said, I love origin stories. Tell me your origin story. How did you get into the business?
Wow. Yeah. So I started off in the kitchen. So I was down to study psychology and sociology way back when, and then took a gap year out. Decided to do a cooking course. My plan was to go and do catering up in the slopes in Europe. I actually just enjoyed it so much that I kind of I then got offered a job at this. It's called Ballymaloe Country House. So started off in the kitchen there. Didn't do the ski season, regrettably, semi-regrettably, but then decided to change my career path to hospitality. So then changed my university course to hospitality and hotel and restaurant management. And yeah, I think from the kitchen, I've got so much respect for the people in the kitchen. I think it can be trying. I mean, yeah, you go home, you eat food, you go to work, you cook food, you come back home, so it's and there's not too many new faces, except unless you have like an open plan kitchen. So I think I've struggled with that a little bit. So then made the transition to front of house. That's in a nutshell.
Yeah, I studied in the kitchen myself, and a chef said to me once, he's like, if you want to do this, if you enjoy doing this, chances are you're not going to want to do this for the rest of your life. Like, if you enjoy doing this, do it at home, cook at home for friends. Don't be in the kitchen, because it is similar to cocktails. Like, I have regulars who love drinking cocktails, and they're like, oh, I did a wedding for my friend. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, it was fucking horrible. I'm like, why is that? He's like, well, because I had to make the same cocktail over and over and over and over again. I'm like, that's my life. What are you talking about?
With the same smile and the same gratitude.
Exactly. So what made you land in Nairobi and start building that?
Yeah. So my heritage is half Kenyan, half Irish. So my dad came out here for a gap year. According to him, he's still on his gap year. So a couple, how many years later. Born and raised in Kenya, and then went out to Ireland for school and university. But then I think the plan was always come back to Kenya. I figured I'd get some experience abroad for a little while and then come back. I ended up staying a lot of while. So I was in Dublin for a good few years with the Western Hotel, and then I moved to Edinburgh with Sheraton Hotels. And then actually when I was moving to Edinburgh, I was trying to find somewhere hotter to get experience, but then trying to stay within Starwood, but then none of the jobs in anywhere that was hot. There was no turnover whatsoever. So I just ended up in Scotland, which was absolutely awesome. Scotland and Edinburgh. I don't know if you've ever been, but beautiful cities. And then got back here. I think we're in the year probably 14 years ago now. In a nutshell, that was the journey.
So what was the like? What was the cocktail? 14 years in the cocktail world now, I feel is still a pretty short like lifespan when we're talking about like
Yeah.
when we talk about cocktail culture in the world. We're talking like Dale de Groff resurgence, like late 1980s, 1990s.
Yeah.
I know I sort of 2009 is when we started like really clicking here in Victoria. What was the
Yeah.
cocktail scene like in Nairobi when you came back 13 years ago?
Um, I mean, it's changed dramatically. I mean, there was kind of like a bit of a. So we had one of our OGs, I suppose, for Kenyan cocktails is a gentleman by the name Sam Kibalenge. So he was the original Dr. Dawa. So Dawa was I suppose it's our biggest export for a Kenyan cocktail. It's basically a rift of a uh, so it's just a rift of a caipirinha. So vodka, honey, lime, sugar. So what? Yeah, I think if I cast myself back, I mean, there was a lot of cocktails they were being made, but they tend to be made. There were semi classic. They were kind of doing as best they could with the ingredients they had. Tended to be around I don't know 5-star hotels, maybe some stuff in the bush in the safari camps, but very little were being consumed, I suppose, by Kenyans on a regular basis. It was mostly guests coming in, tourists coming in, and yeah, I think like I said, you'd find cocktails in high end hotel bars, and then there was a couple of like the shoulders we're standing on now. A couple of outliers came into the market. I mean, it was basics, but it was like there was daiquiris, there was mojitos, and again playing to the produce that we had. Our back bar even today is quite shallow when you look at other countries. But within that, obviously, there lies the opportunity as well. So I think what was interesting when we opened up here is that it was a really basic thing to do. We purposely just didn't put any other drinks on the menu. So we only put cocktails and mocktails. And it sounds like an epiphany thing, but it was actually it was the first time I think a bar had ever done that. Ordinarily, you'd have a list of all the whiskeys, your vodkas, your tequilas, etc., etc., etc. So I think from that, it kind of just meant that consumers came in and they're like, oh, okay, so we're going to order a cocktail. And so I definitely don't want to say that we were the first bar to be doing cocktails. I think we were actually one of the first that really took it seriously and really took made a real conscious effort to make sure that each serve was really thought out and like I think if that answers.
No, what do you think that catalyst was for the general consumer? And because Victoria's cocktail scene was the same. Like we had our franchise restaurants that were making like sugary martinis and that sort of thing, and you could get cocktails there. And then all of a sudden we started doing like classics and start building that. What was that catalyst to get the general consumer, the local, to like start going, oh, okay, well, I can have a good cocktail here?
Yeah, no, good question. I think, and actually, you're bang on the money. It was very to go out and order coffee. Potentially overly sweet. I mean, actually, even the palate itself. I mean, the Kenyan palate has changed dramatically. I mean, there was a lot of tend to be quite sweet, tend to be quite tropical. You'd probably likely have some kind of fruit salad in your glass, and potentially some different layers. Some blue curacao definitely would have made an appearance on more than one cocktail on the list. But yeah, I think what it kind of happened the same time that it happened. Okay. I think Nairobi at the time, like I said, it was really catering towards I suppose quite a privileged class. I think what happened was there's been quite a few local premises that were opened up, and I think from the and they were really, I mean, they were starting to, sorry, now you started me on a really passionate topic. There was the first time that was the Kenyans were, I suppose, they had a little bit more money to go out with. They were traveling more, so they were coming back with different tastes. So to Dubai to Nairobi is actually quite a short flight. So I think there was a lot of people going to Dubai, seeing what other outlets were, seeing what other options were happening. And then from that, they were coming back with ideas and either opening up their own spaces. And then even so industry-wise, I think there was a real focus to look, I mean, look, making cocktails is cool, and like it's I think with the right bar and the right bartenders, I think there's an engagement that happens over the bar, as you know, that's very different to an engagement maybe with a waiter or waitress or server. And I think the catalyst that maybe made the change was, and it happened at the same time as wines were coming into the market. So there was kind of like an education towards wines. And like, again, we started off with, there was red and white, sweet or dry. That was kind of those are the options. And I think as more wine suppliers started developing that market, the cocktail market started to grow alongside it. And I think, and to be honest, look, we still have a long way to go. I think this is part of why we actually started with Kenya bartending, again, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But there's still consumers that aren't. It's not their first go-to is to go to a drink or a cocktail, but like what the beauty is and what's quite special with Kenya is that because of the scarcity of some of the perhaps like your classic go-tos on your back bar, and has meant that you, in order to we don't have vineyards in Kenya, so what we do have is we have incredible ingredients and we have a decent amount of alcohol or varieties. So I think it's now that harnessing of indigenous and awesome ingredients, and it's a way to taste the country. Same way, if you go down to Cape Town and you go to the vineyards, you're able to taste the wines. And in Kenya, we don't have that, but we do have an ability to make those cocktails and to sub out some of the classic ingredients and maybe make some unique serves for Kenya.
So I'm going to make a note because I want to come back to that. I'm just curious, when it comes to bringing on staff, when a culture is so young and new, how are you hiring staff, bringing staff on, and then like building that culture within? Because you're sort of like juggling two balls. You got to like create staff that are good to do these cocktails and creative processes, as well as like educating your consumer. How are you bringing on staff and then keeping them and training them into the ways that you sort of like lead with?
Good question. I think, look, it's obviously been a journey. I think if just speaking just to Hero, prior to Hero opening, we also had Jika, which is at the Tribe Hotel, and that was also one of the I suppose it was one of the outliers as well. I think I'll answer from our perspective, but then also at the same time, I just want to talk briefly about what obviously changed in the market was world class was a huge one for us. I mean, world class coming in, and I'm sure the impact. I wouldn't be the first to talk about the impact to the market, but that when that happens, obviously bartenders had their opportunity to actually better themselves for competition, and once you go to competition, you obviously have to know your stuff. So I think it took the bartender. It got the bartenders going home with homework, and there was that passion that came with it. I think prior to that, there was maybe just it was the job. Like you'd come in, you do your job, you go home. People weren't picking up books, they weren't checking out resources, they weren't outside of the workplace, they weren't really that involved in cocktails. So I think when Hero opens, like I said, we didn't. There was a couple of classic riffs, but then we did take a long time coming up with the first menu. It was as you mentioned, it was an introduction to the consumer. So we couldn't go too outlandish and too wild or too crazy because we would just lose them. But it was a happy medium between bartender ability plus then what we thought the consumer might be interested in. And again, we went. It was a time of Instagram, so we also went with a bit of theater and a bit of drama, because yeah, that's what. As soon as there's a bit of drama walking through the outlet, then obviously people started getting excited and starting curious. And I think, and again, I'm sure you'll attest to this. Busy bartenders make bartenders, or busy bars make better bartenders. I think as soon as we had the menu, we were set, and there was enough creativity there for the guys to really sink that, the guys and girls to really sink their teeth into. It's, and with only just having cocktails on the list, consumers were starting to order them. There was a bit of theatre that was coming out with them. Bartenders were getting more interested in it, and so that the training kind of happened, and the passion happened, and almost hand in hand. So yeah, it was kind of, it was a perfect catalyst. It was a nice little yeah, it was a nice moment actually when you reflect back on it. It's like, actually we kind of nailed that. That was awesome. And yeah, I think it was obviously, like I said, we were on the shoulders of others that stood before us, and we're certainly, yeah, we were trying to make something fun, make something that was Kenyan in flavor and taste, and that also just served in a really nice whimsical way.
I think that's I've been very vocal about my dislike and disdain for the minimalist movement. Just because I see another cocktail.
A couple of your podcasts.
Yeah. If I see another cocktail in a minimalist glass with a king cube and a freaking lime disc, I'm gonna lose my shit. Because I do think that bartenders should be fun. But I think you've got the same sort of mentality we had here in Victoria, is that every time we had a brand ambassador come in, we do an industry seminar during the day, and then we do something for the guest at night, and it literally elevated the guest and the community at the exact same time and the exact same knowledge base. And when you have guests sit at the bar and start questioning, in a way that's constructive, then all of a sudden the bartender's like, shit, I gotta really know know my stuff now. I gotta make sure that if the guest knows more than me, I better be stepping my game up.
100%. And I think actually, and I mean, that's a nail on the head. I mean, especially at a cocktail bar. I think it's one thing if you walk into like a dive bar and your bartender's opening a beer and giving you a shot. Sure, they can have a good amount of knowledge and they're absolutely awesome. And their dive bars are absolutely, I have a massive passion for a fan of dive bars. But I think when you're at a cocktail bar and you're convincing someone that maybe just would likely go for a beer or a gin and tonic or whatever to try something different, then you better know what's in the glass and you better have a cool story about it.
So when it comes to indigenous ingredients, obviously I briefly looked over you. Oh, there we go.
Sorry, that's not.
When it comes to indigenous ingredients, I looked over your menu and I did see that sort of those riffy sort of mentality of I know that, I know that, I know that. That's interesting. I know that. I know that. It's one. How are you sort of folding that in? And is it a hook for the locals, the general consumer that's coming in? Do they know that fruit or that ingredient or that spice or that ingredient in the cocktail that they may go, oh, I know that. My mum used to cook with that. Or I know that. My mum used to make that. Is that a nice hook for the general consumer? And how does it play into bringing that into the bartender's fold? Because you're playing with things that are completely brand new outside of house syrups and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So look, I think it's, again, we're kind of holding back a little bit as well, because obviously we're finding out, and this is what's so awesome about being in this market. And actually, I'm really truly honored to be in the position I am. Is that I think maybe let me cast you back a small bit. I'm not going to talk too much about the history, but obviously Kenya was colonized by the English. There was during that time there was a huge change from almost getting rid of indigenous crops, and the focus was on cash crops for obvious reasons. Cash crops obviously becomes industry. You can ship them around the world, but then during that time there was a huge amount of indigenous fruits, vegetables, and ingredients that were kind of lost. And I think part of the success of, I suppose, the colonization was that they also convinced the general public that some of those indigenous ingredients were not good, and cash crops were the best, and that was what people went for. I think what we've seen, and we keep seeing, what is growing, and what we're seeing now is that there's a huge pride and a huge reach back into history to find out some of these ingredients. And I think what's been really fascinating with the story, like the small story. I mean, Hero's only coming to 6 years, 7 years now, 6 years, 7 years, 7 years. But we've come. We're only just like scraping at the door, scraping just we're scraping the skin, because there's still a huge amount of ingredients that we haven't actually tried or tested. But coming back to your question about the consumer, I think there's a fascination from the Kenyan consumer, and then there's an intrigue from the Western or the tourists, because they're obviously trying a cocktail, which is you can find around the world, but then and oftentimes it's a little bit of a rift. So there's different flavors, I think. So, I mean, I personally love to travel with my taste buds. So I think going to somewhere that I can try something that I can't have back home that's just definitely my jam, and I love it to pieces. So I think if we're trying to offer that, and I think what's been really interesting again is that obviously we can build the basics of some of the classics. Like I said, our back bar is a little bit shallow, but we can build the classics. But then where the bartender's eye is really like opened up was when you're now telling them to go back home, talk to your grandmother, talk to the medicine man, whatever it is. Like let's find these ingredients, because like some of these ingredients they're like, especially when we're talking like about Kenya coming onto the cocktail scene and Africa coming onto the cocktail scene, we need to be coming with something that's unique and authentic and different. I mean, to present ourselves in that market, in the global market, we need to also have that USP. So I think that's when you see the bartenders really getting engaged. And like, I mean, the amount of times you're walking past it, I don't know, walk past the lab and there's some peculiar root or bark of a tree, and you're like, let's try this out. So yeah. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. How long's Kenya Bartenders Week been around now? How many years have you been doing?
So Kenya Bartender Week, this is going to be the second year. So last year was our first year. So we're young. We're young and energetic and really keen to see what we can do with it. And I suppose, the inspiration for Kenya Bartender Week was really Hero. We've been very honored by some of the attention that we've gained. So Kenya Bartender Week also came about like, okay, how do we now pass this on to the wider community? How can we be that fire starter and just help share that light? Because obviously, look, if we were just to simply build alone, I think after a while would soon fade. But if we can build a really healthy environment around us where there's other cool bars doing stuff, and there's just real ecosystem of all of us pushing each other forward, then we have a sustainable future, and we can then contend with the big bad boys of the rest of the cocktail world.
And that's always the hardest thing. I feel like we synergize on so much stuff, including when I was leaving high school. I actually got a scholarship to do psychology at university, and I took a gap year and got into hospitality. So
wow, sounds familiar.
So for everybody who's like curious, walk us through Kenya's Bartender Week, on like, how does the week roll out? What's the focuses? Obviously, we've got the usual pop-ups and that sort of thing. What's the focus behind Kenya Bartender Week and how it rolls out over the week?
Yeah, sure. Actually, maybe just briefly before I talk to that, is that so this kind of came about as well, obviously, with Hero. When we got onto the extended list, we actually started, and I mean we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, I think our first guest was Hiroyasu from Bar Ben Fidik in Tokyo.
Oh, because that's that's
why. But I mean, for us, we God bless him. I mean, he came to Kenya. I think he obviously has a 12-seater venue. We're what, 45 to 48, can easily fit about 70 people. But then we weren't sure what we were doing, so we ended up having him on for 3 nights, and like the poor. I mean, he was but I think then from that, obviously, we learned a lot, and we kind of perfected. We kind of got better at what we were doing, and like obviously we didn't want to overwork the bartenders. They're also here to be seen to the rest of Kenya. We assumed they were here to work, but but yeah. Then fast forward, I mean, we've had like the likes of Handshake, we've had like Paradiso, so we've had a really cool roster of people. But and the reason I'm not names dropping, but the reason I'm mentioning it is that I think each of them would attest to it. Is that I think takeovers around the world for sure that have been happening for many years. And I don't know the impact of them, but I can tell you the impact on what's happened to Kenya. Each and every single one of the takeovers that we've hosted for the wider community has been like it's so tangible. We had Julio Cabrera from Cafe La Trova over to do like to do a perfect mojito. I mean, like something as simple as that, but then like all of a sudden, every single venue you go to, you can actually have a perfect, like you can have a fantastic mojito, or like, so the knock-on effect. I think there's just a hunger that is maybe, and I'm sure it's there, but I like I said, I can't test other markets, but there's just a hunger that is just so palatable, and it's like it's exciting when you get an amazing like a bartender coming in, because obviously we can't bring the whole team out, but when we bring them in, the master classes are usually 80 plus bartenders from around the city, and it's just anyway. So with that being that being the foundation, when it came to Kenya Bartender Week, we wanted to try and to see if we could get a bit of that, and like I said, so it's two horns. And again, it's quite challenging for a festival. I think most times with bartenders weeks or with bar shows, it's either it's focused towards the industry, or there's a consumer focus. I think trying to do both, when we learned we learned some things, we failed at some things, but I think overall it was a success, and we were incredibly humbled by how it all came together. But for next year, basically the format will be, obviously we're going to have some internationals come in. Actually, for this first year that we did it, we kind of tried to do as many bars from around our locale. So we got 2 bars from South Africa up. We got 2 bars from Accra and Ghana who are doing some awesome stuff down across that side, and then a couple of bars from Dubai, and then Athens was the furthest bar away for international. So I think we're going to try and do a similar format where we try and get some African bars in, because obviously, bigger than just Kenya Bartender Weekend, also maybe what Colin was attesting to with the Jabu, is there's this community that's kind of growing. Am I speaking too long?
No.
There's this community that's kind of growing. I mean, there's and there's different festivals that are starting to come up. And I think if we can all start to really plug into them and kind of build the infrastructure around as a whole, because it's a huge continent. But if we can be doing some cool stuff around us, then obviously the hope and plan is that one day we'll have 50 best Africa, right? That's the goal. So I think. Sorry, I keep jumping around.
No, I'm loving it. But, you just run, man.
But for Kenya Bartender Week this year, so we're going to have the bartenders coming in, and then what we did, and we did last year, was that we kind of took some of our expertise when it came to hosting masterclasses, takeovers, and we tried to like bring up some other bars that we kind of identified as other halo bars around the city that we can help bring up and allow them to also host guest shifts, and hopefully by doing so we get more and more guests to the city. But then that was all happening, but then the biggest kind of highlight for me was the educational bit, and that was kind of happening throughout the week. So we had different talks on from Tuesday through to the Monday, different talks on through the week, and then we kind of culminated with a Kenya Bartender Week cocktail festival, which is on the Saturday, so the consumer stuff was happening with the takeovers. We were really trying to plug into the consumer side of things. All the education stuff was happening during the daytime, and then Saturday was a lot of education plus then this cocktail festival. and then there was like a lot of different stuff. A lot of stuff that again, um, we are incredibly, yeah, we're incredibly blessed in Nairobi. It's a city that you can come to where you can go to a national park during the daytime or for sunrise and watch lions and wildlife, and then you can go to giraffe center to feed giraffe, end up in CBD having a cocktail, party all night, and do the same thing in the morning. So like we try to plug into some of those areas as well. That kind of shows Nairobi as an awesome city that it is. Um, and yeah, I think that was in a nutshell. Very far around to come to that answer, but we got there.
No, it's perfect because I'm curious. Like, world's 50 best, obviously. What's your number one in Africa, number 69 in the world, number 69?
Yes, yes.
And every year, whenever 50 best comes out or any awards come out, big cities go, well, they'll have their grievances as they do. Me coming from a small market, that that shit is like that's marketing dollars that I'm not paying for. That is putting bums in seats and changing our culture and actually putting a spotlight on something that would not necessarily get that spotlight from regular media or anything like that. Because as you said, Africa's a massive continent,
Yeah.
a huge amount of bars in there. So how did that change? And were you expecting that number one spot and number 69 in the world when it came out last year? And all of a sudden you're like, oh damn, it is validation to a degree, 100%.
Yeah.
But for small markets, it's a game changer for small markets.
Yeah, so I think, look, I think I'm incredibly thankful for the decision by 50 Best to decide to separate Middle East and Africa. I think it was, it was perfect timing. I think it was, I think others would say that we should have happened a long time before. The reason I think it's perfect timing, I think, and again, South Africa has been kind of on the list for quite a bit longer. They've definitely got a more developed cocktail market and a more developed cocktail scene. And the reason I think this was kind of the perfect time for 50 Best to announce it was with it, with if it had announced earlier, I think it would have just been dominated by South African bars from the onset. And I think what was nice about it was that like we've got these different cocktail sections happening across Africa. Like I said, Accra, Lagos, yeah, cocktail festival going on, up to Morocco coming up. So it allowed other markets outside of South Africa to build. I think, yeah, I mean, we're obviously like holding the top. That I mean, when we heard the news that they were going to announce Africa's best bar, I mean, that was, yeah, I mean, it's when you start the journey. I mean, you start the journey in a market that isn't really known for cocktails, and you weren't really expecting to. I mean, at best, maybe. To be honest, even when we first got on the list of 50 best, or the extended list, we were blown away. We had no idea about what it all meant in the first place. But then we've been consistently on there. So between 70, 69, then we dropped down to 75. So we've been consistently on that in that little window. And I think it's funny. I think it's two things. There's a target on your back now. And I think from both, I think obviously from the rest of the other markets, fantastic. That's a great thing. That's competition. I love competition. And I think if we can bring the best out of each other and we can still have friendly competition. The target on the back when it comes to the consumer, sometimes that one is a bit hard to hard to tell, because now there's an award that says you're the best bar in Africa, and I think obviously not every bar is everyone's cup of tea. Not every cocktail is everyone's cocktail, right? It's like, so I think with that accolade, it means that if there are haters, then they do pick up on that and they try and like tear you down for that. But overall, it's been received really, really well, and I think, thankfully, like I said, we've tried to approach with all of our successes from a very humble standpoint, and I've always tried to uplift others as well as we rise. So I think based on that, and also based on kind of the relationship we have with the wider community, it's been very well received here. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a game changer for just the fact that we are able to just talk to other like awesome bars and bartenders, invite them over here. And I think, yeah, like I said, I think it's I mean, it's still it's still a crazy journey. It's still kind of I still need to pinch myself sometimes, because I think when we first got, I remember going over to, it was at the Roundhouse in London when we first got on the wards back in 2019, and going there thinking no idea. I mean, we were walking to, we went there with one of the directors, Shamim. So we walked into this room and like knew nobody, absolutely nobody. Obviously, we knew them through like cocktail fame or whatever, but
Yeah.
and I think I remember just getting, I'm apologizing to Shamim, saying, listen, I'm actually going to probably get a little bit half cut. But then I'm bouncing around and and there were some people that were really open to this new arrival. Others were a little bit dismissive. But I think we've slowly edged our way in there. And I think we're definitely flying the flag for not just our market. We're really proud to be representing the rest of Africa. And so it's been a epic journey, but long may it continue, actually.
So you're a leader and a mentor in not just the African market. What sort of advice are you giving to the next generation of bartenders in Africa? Because as I said, as we were talked about, like they're coming up through the ranks as we're sort of getting the consumers doing. Obviously, I feel like it's the same thing that we have in our city in Victoria, that like when you got number one in Africa, it was a no Ruby got number one, not just Hero Bar. Like the whole city got number one bar, not just my little bar in the corner. You know, when we got our first Tales of the Cocktail nomination in 2011, it was like top 4 hotel bar in the world, and like it was a Victoria award, not just
awesome.
Not just a hotel bar. So what's the advice you're giving to the next generation of African bartenders coming through the ranks?
Actually, just briefly on to speak to what you just mentioned. I think what was interesting actually with getting it was that we've been trying to for a long time, actually trying to work with the Kenyan hospitality community and the Kenyan tourism board. So we brought them on board for the Kenyan Bartender Week. We've been trying to do more with them because I think Kenya has classically been marketed as a safari and beach. So fly in. Most people maybe stay in Nairobi one night. So we've been trying to plug in and say, listen, let's try and really shout about the cool stuff we're doing in the city, that people actually come and stay for longer. So it's even if it's 1 or 2 more days in the city, and then they can go off to the safaris in the bush. But obviously in the safari, you don't meet that many Kenyans, right? You'll meet the driver, you meet the guys that are working in the camp, but you don't actually get to see the beating heart of the country. So I think when it came to trying to walk that relationship or trying to walk that journey with them, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat that question. No, I think when walking with them on it, I think what's interesting is that even now there's Kenyans that walk into our bar that don't actually. I think while we might be celebrated across Africa or even across other markets and certainly globally in the cocktail family, but what's funny is that there's still so many that don't know about us in our own market.
Yeah,
and that's maybe it's the fault is on us, but I think it's also I think there's confusion right there. I think especially with like a 50 best accolade, I think people are expecting like that any bar. Yeah, that you kind of have to explain. There's a little bit of there's a need for cocktails, right? You're not just like a nightclub and a high energy bar that you have a good time and then that you get the award for that. It's like there has to be a bit of like there's a bit of science to it. Right? There's a bit of like have a good program, have a good beverage program, etc. But I think my advice for other bars or younger bars coming in, I think try and look. The world is huge. 50 Best obviously extended the list to 51 to 100. Tales of the Cocktail, we're starting to do some great stuff with Tales of the Cocktail throughout Africa. I think those two platforms, when it comes to talking to a global audience, I think let's just talk briefly about Tales. Tales and Spirited Awards is phenomenal because anyone can nominate, right? That you like. Any whether you're the owner, whether you're a consumer, you can nominate a bar. So I think the fact that exists and is not being utilized enough. So I think you just have to get out and vote. And I think for the smaller venues that are around Africa that maybe are trying to come up with a program or trying to think about how do they use their mouthpiece. I think you've got, like I said, Tales of Cocktail, which you can nominate. I think I'd advise them to get their teams ready for competition ready. Teams are a great way to advertise your business. They're a great way to bring that skill back into your business. And I think if you rally around your bartenders and really get them ready to compete, then that will market your bar. And if you can get to like even top 10 or top 5 or whatever placement you can, and some of your bartenders up there, I mean that speaks volumes for you for who you are, and that should attract other bartenders to come join your team. Bartenders talk. I mean, hospitality talks, right? So if you're well looked after, and if you're people are actually not beyond just a paycheck, are actually taking care of you, then I think you'll naturally attract talent. And I think here, we're blessed where if someone was to resign, I think my Instagram alone has countless amounts of bartender requests. So I think, go slowly, be authentic to yourself. I think come up with a list that the guys can do, and it's not just
ostentatious
for
being ostentatious.
Exactly. And I think if you try and avoid copycatting if you can. I think certainly, especially if you're doing your own drinks list and you're coming up with your own cocktails, and if not, just try and do riffs and classics. I think start there, and just slowly build to that. And I would 100% suggest, if you're going to be a cocktail bar, don't advertise you have other drinks. Have them, don't advertise it.
So what's your outlook for the next 5 years for not just Nairobi and Kenya, but for the African cocktail community going forward? What's your outlook, and what would you like to see in the next 5 years?
Good. I think for the community at large, for Kenya at large, I think I'd love to see more engagement again from the tourism sector, starting to really market some of the urban environments, because I think we've got really cool stories to tell. I would love to, I personally I would love to see more African bars on the list. It was kind of bittersweet. So the year before, we obviously had Syntax from Joburg and ourselves on the list. Then Syntax dropped off last year. So hoping to get more bars back onto the list, because I think with that ecosystem, then we can really start to do some cool things. So I think I would love to continue to see the collaboration that we've been building. Like I said, we've been working closely with a lot of the South African bars, and we've been working a lot with the Accra bars. Morocco was just started getting some relationships up there. So I think just seeing that ecosystem kind of growing, where there's a little bit more, I suppose, movement between our different. Because I think one of the things we haven't covered, but like one of the biggest stumbling blocks for us, or for my team, I'm actually really honored thankful to have an Irish and Kenyan passport. But for the team, visas is a huge thing. I mean, and it's our biggest obstacle. So getting people around. So I think, but thankfully across Africa, obviously it's expensive, but it can at least there's not visas. So I think next 5 years, I would love to see the journey that here has kind of started, and it's happening already, where other bars are getting involved and really trying to see what kind of cool, unique indigenous ingredients they can use. I'd love to see that momentum and movement continue to happen. And I think to look one step at a time. I think I would also love to see brands properly investing into and growing their budgets. I think especially when you go to Tales and you're like, what? This is
all the world's 50 best awards ceremonies. Bitch, please, you told me there's no money. If you told me there's no money for me, then I'd be okay with it. But you're telling me there's no budget. Hey, you're telling me there's no budget. Just tell me there's no budget for me in my market. I'll be okay with that. Exactly. Just don't tell me there's no budget.
I remember my first Tales. I remember like just rolling around and just being like his mouth to the floor. Yeah, so like I think the impact. I think the impact. I think, and look, I think the rest of the world is kind of yeah. Then there's been a recorrection. People are starting to go out less, or they're drinking less, and they're. But I think yeah, I mean Kenya's and Africa's alive and kicking. We've got a growing population. There's a real hunger for knowledge. I think coming here authentically and coming here like with a plan. But yeah, there's opportunity for brands, and I think there's definitely some really cool stuff that we can do on the continent. I think we're yeah, I've got I've got 100 ideas. If you're listening, come to Richie. I've got lots of ways to spend your money.
Well, Richie, man, I could talk to you. Like, I think I talk to a lot of people in a lot of small markets and stuff, but I've never connected with someone in the same sort of way because it's like literally your story every single step. I'm like, I did that in 2010. I did this. Yes. Like,
Psychology chef.
yeah. It's just like I'm like, but and then again, like I was in Vancouver for 6 months working at a couple of bars there, away from Victoria, and it was during World's 50 Best North America, and now all the reps know. I know how much money they
Yeah.
spend on things like that. I'm like, oh, when I'm back in Victoria, man, I'm going to be asking for that same sort of fucking coin. It's a 20-minute airplane. It's a 20-minute seaplane ride. I'm like, you're telling me you don't have budget for my little town? Uh, I know how much you
Yeah.
spent last year. I know how much you spent.
Yeah. Well, actually, to answer me, what's been great about actually getting that accolade? I know you're trying to wrap it up, but the great thing about that accolade was that brands are now actually starting to take us a bit more seriously when it comes to, yeah, like look, we came up with this. I mean, it's a bit of a harebrained idea, but like we pitched it a couple of brands where we do want to kind of do like some movements around Africa and like really like, talk to the team, like big up our team and get the team out there on the road. Because I think through travel, you know yourself, as soon as you travel, as soon as you experience that kind of the service from somewhere else or in a different culture, oof, your eyes are just as open, and you come back home and you actually appreciate way more what you actually got back home in terms of the ingredients and the resources you have. So I think yeah. Anyway, brands we can talk about for till the till the cocktails come home. But yeah, I've absolutely hugely enjoyed it, Sean.
So at the end of every episode, I do 5 deep podcast questions. Every guest gets these. So, what is one lesson or experience that has shaped your perspective the most, and how do you carry that forward in your life, whether it be business or personal?
Yeah, I think I don't know. Yeah, hopefully this answers it. But I think every single person remembers that one person that kind of like showed them their potential. I think whether it was a manager that took them aside, that kind of took them under the wing and like really brought the potential out of them. And um, I think there's something that I reflect back on a lot, especially now in the position I am in now. I think it's something that I would love to be that person to as many people as possible. I would love to be that person that kind of that took yeah, maybe like someone messed up or fucked up 10 times, but like took that person under their wing, showed them how to do it properly, and kind of gave them the little bit of um the little bit of protection that they needed to actually grow. So that's yeah. So I think it's kind of shaped my management style. I think it's something that I try and echo back to, because I definitely had that person in my life, actually more than one person in my life that kind of guided me. So yeah.
If you could leave one lasting message or piece of wisdom for the world, what would it be and why?
Ah, I'm just yeah, I'm a firm believer that it's just so much easier to be happy. And I think a smile and a laugh it just lifts the mood every single time. I think if you can just bring a smile to your face, and like it does bring it down. It outwardly it brings it inwardly. I think if you can, whether it's a smile on a bus journey to a stranger, whatever it is, a smile changes the world, and it can smile a smile at a time can make the world a much happier place.
Looking back on your journey, what is something you wish you had understood earlier in life?
Um, okay. I think look, this one's yeah. I think this is not to be said like this is not for like not if any of my bartenders hear this, it's not or any of my team hear this. It's not to say just one task. But I think yeah, I think sometimes it's very easy to like cram your day full of like a huge to-do list and loads of
Mhm.
things, and then kind of like do bits and pieces of them. But I think if you can just complete that one task or one big task a day, and just focus on that one task, and then slowly move on to the others.
Yeah.
I think I'm still guilty of it. I still have too many freaking things open up on my desktops. I still jump around doing it. But like if I can just do that one task sets the day, and
Yeah.
then you can complete hundreds more. Yeah.
How do you define success, and has your definition of it changed over time?
Yeah. So I think look, I think I'm yeah. In my personal life, I think success to me is yeah, being healthy, and not being sick. Actually, to myself, I've suffered from a huge amount of back issues, and like, so I think like being in a good, healthy, and strong. Um, I think my bare minimum that for me in terms of success would be to provide the same opportunities that my parents provided to me for my child,
Mm.
and hopefully many other future children. But I think that's kind of my base success. I think if I was to talk about in the workplace, in the workplaces, I find it a little bit harder. I think like obviously there's awards and the rest, and there's recognition, fantastic. But I think success again, maybe echoing back to my first answer, it would just be just to be the one that opened the door to countless others. I think to giving that maybe a young, unstructured Richie
Mm.
a bit of a direction, and a bit of like a and being that sounding board that was needed at that time. I think if I can be that person to the younger generations, and then silently be credited, and that'd be awesome.
What do you hope your legacy will be, and what steps are you taking to build it?
Yeah, I think look, I really hope my legacy will be a small nudge for Kenya and its hospitality, its food, its ingredients, and its people. Um, I think in a wider context, I would love to have left a mark, maybe not just in Kenya, but maybe on the sector at large. I think it would be, yeah, I'd love to look back and just, I think, I am taking steps to do it. I think maybe not selfishly. I think it's more for the larger community. But I would love to look back and just say that, we were part of, and I say we because I think there's more than one of us
Mm-hmm.
around the continent doing some cool stuff. I think we were part of something that is now become this unstoppable force. And yeah, that's me.
Man, thank you so much. I think I could talk to you for hours.
Ditto,
I've got,
ditto, man, ditto.
I've got to get to Nairobi as soon as possible this year, maybe next year. But thank you
Yes,
so much, man. I really appreciate everything.
I didn't even get we didn't even get to the comic, man. I had the comic set aside you for you, Shawn.
Oh, that's awesome. I need that in my life. I've been toying around with how to do a comic book menu, so I need to get some pointers. I need some inspiration.
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely, anytime. And yeah,
Well,
but Shawn, yeah, absolute pleasure, and thank you so much, and
thank you
thank
so
you
much, man.
for hosting me, and it's been it's been super fun. And
I
I look forward
appreciate it, man.
to sharing a basketball